This is your Monday Kat and Nat Unfiltered parenting podcast, and welcome to the Monday conversation about parenting, tweens, teens, and everything in between.
Oh,
right?
Different, yeah.
Tween, teens, and everything in between.
I like it.
It is.
It's a new cheers.
Tweens, teens, and everything in between.
There is so much in between.
I was thinking the other day, and we have a great expert on body image today. Well, interestingly, she's actually a Peloton instructor, and it is her opinion and kind of own experience versus an expert in the field on the conversation, you know?
It was actually a really, she was one of the first Peloton instructors. She's like, we had a conversation, and it was, you know, what was great about it, and we'll get into it, is that there are experts in everything, but at the end of the day, we're all human. And what we got to do with her was we got to have a conversation about body image, but we also got to talk to her about her experience, and her daughter, and we all kind of we ended up having a woman-to-woman conversation about body image.
Yeah, and when it starts, and why it starts, and what age it starts, and you know, hard fact, it's handed down from your parents. It is. I think that is the number one way you receive how you feel about yourself, is how they feel about themselves. I don't know if you can feel shitty and insecure and hate yourself and pass on something positive to your kids, because they are soaking in everything you're doing, all the subtle things. They're watching how you interact. They're watching how you walk into a room. Mm-hmm. They're watching literally everything. Mm-hmm. And you can pick up on the body checking, the way they look in the mirror, the way they sigh when they see what they see, the way they are unconfident in like playing with their hair when they're having conversations. You can see it. Mm-hmm. You can plain day see it. And I was really thinking recently, I'm like, when everyone talks about confidence, I'm like, I think it starts so young. And I think you're basically, then there's outside messages that come to you. But imagine if you already feel good about yourself, you can't receive those outside messages because you're already like, that doesn't pertain to me. Mm-hmm. If you have already got your shell, your exterior, like your scaffolding or whatever you want to call it, of body image, of the way you perceive yourself. But I know people to this day who still make their kids go for walks after they eat. Or, you know, do
and
work.
Not for the purpose of just getting fresh air.
Well, here's a hard thing. So my daughter, I'll say to her, because of her concussion in her head, what she eats really matters in terms of how she feels. From a very young age, we went away once and she can eat all the things and then she'll barf because she goes, you know, or she feels anxious from what she eats. From a very young age, she's sensitive to what she puts in her body. Mm-hmm. Everyone who gets a concussion or a head injury, diet is like the number one thing you can control for inflammation. Mm-hmm. I never put her on it. We did see what it did for Max in terms of his everything. It cleaned everything up. He is also really sensitive to what he eats, and I'm not, or I wasn't.
I know you weren't.
But for him, he really, right away. I know right away.
Is your husband?
I mean, no, he's not. I would just say,
you guys are stomachs of steel.
You were. I think it might be hormones. I think hormones are fucking with him and his.
With who?
Both of them, maybe. I think of what hormones does to us, but I measured him, and he's grown like, I think 5 inches since November. Mm-hmm. That's when things were real bad. Like it was real bad last year in terms of, I mean, guys, if you don't know, he was on Advil every day, and his knees hurt, his joints hurt. He had a headache. It was terrible. To the point where we went to allergies. We did some blood. It was crazy just because you can't live on Advil. He'd wake up crying from joint pain.
And you know, when you say hormones, it's like everybody who sees Max, and this is including us, like we see each other all the time, but because life is crazy, sometimes it would go for a while, we wouldn't see Max, and everyone is like, that was such a fast, like it happened so fast for him. So that's a lot going on in your body. Like he got so much bigger, he got so much taller, his face changed, his body changed. Like it's like he went through a spurt, whereas some people are gradual, or maybe they just go, you know, in the summer they'll grow a couple of inches, but his was like, it was almost like he was on like steroids, and it happened so fast that it would be hard for a body.
And I had to measure them all because I'm like, I need to see the correlation here. So they're all on the wall now so I can see. And I was thinking, if that was a girl, would this be a massive body image issue where he was on gluten-free? Like we had all of the, we put everything, all stops in. Like it was all about his diet. Everything was about what he was putting in his mouth because I couldn't control anything else.
I'm sure it could trigger a girl or it could start something, but like everything around that, and even if he was a girl, it was all about his health.
And he felt better. He was like, I feel so much.
I guess in that case, if let's just say the girl
lost a bunch of weight.
And then all of a sudden she was like, wow, like, oh my gosh.
And everyone's like, you look so great.
Yes. Then you'd be like, that could definitely have triggered a girl. I mean, boys have eating disorders too, absolutely. But, you know.
So whenever I say to her, I'm like, you know, what are you? I'm like, that might not help your head. If you're telling me if you're going to complain to me, then I get a say in what you're doing. Like you don't, if you're not complaining, I'm not going to be like, what are you, that might not be the best option for you right now. And she's like, you're fat shaming me. I'm like, I go, let's talk about this. Fat shaming is me saying you shouldn't eat that because, you know, it's going to make you bigger or your jeans are a bit tight, or I'm like, I'm concerned about your gut right now versus what your body, I could give a flying fuck. Like if your head is the biggest trauma I have in my life, I'm like, let's clean up I would have done anything. If they said,
give her tequila every morning,
I would have given her tequila every morning.
Yeah.
And if our last thing is there's no you can live on medication, but clearly it doesn't help you overall. Or you can maybe clean up your gut health, and maybe it will give you 9 out of 10 people with concussions are like, that's the one thing that changed my life was doing that. The inflammation in their bodies, right? Because everything's inflamed. Anyways, she's like, you're fat shaming me. I'm like, I've had a lot of conversations around her about what fat shaming is, because I think that's also a term everyone loves to use now. You're fat shaming me. You're fat shaming me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's really break it down. Am I helping you make decisions that will help your brain that is hurting and you're complaining about? Or am I saying don't eat that because of the way you look? Like, let's define, if you have control over one thing to make you feel better. If they said wear white jeans every day, I'd be like, why are you wearing the blue jeans? You should maybe wear the white jeans today. It is just basically by way of your body.
And the thing is that I think that, like, you know, sometimes also with moms who are trying to teach that same lesson, but without a concussion, that like, if you fuel your body with like whole good foods, you're naturally going to feel better, think better, move better. But they don't go and clarify why it is, and it has nothing to do with your weight. So that what these kids receive from the parents is, she's just saying that because she thinks I've got some extra weight on me. But mom doesn't stop to explain the whole process, because in reality,
unless they really are concerned and they're not saying it, and they're masking it.
I'm saying
under
there's
that.
Definitely those, but then I think there's some that are really just trying to raise healthy children, or put healthy foods into their body, but that's not the way that the daughter's receiving it. If she maybe feels like mom actually, because maybe mom's really fit, mom's really healthy,
and doesn't ever eat this, that, or that. So if I eat that, she thinks it's bad food versus good food, all the things.
And mom's trying to make me lose weight, but she's not saying it, you know. But kids are very good, I think, at like, even if Olivia says you're fat shaming me,
she jokes with me.
She jokes because our children all know that we don't give her, I mean, you can eat whatever you want. For God's sakes, we are the poster people of McDonald's. Like, you can eat anything you want. We're very lucky that a lot of them love healthy food as well. But our kids would never feel like, that's one thing that we don't put on them, is like the weight, all that. And now the boys all want to bulk up. But
for us,
yeah,
we don't feel that way,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Through and through. And I think it's a quiet narrative. It's a louder narrative. It's one that you live. And I think that the kids who, they feel it and they know it. They know, oh, that matters to my mom, what I look like. It matters to her.
And we've had teenagers tell us that too. And they're like, my mom, you know, she cares so much about herself and her health and all of that. And even if you don't tell your daughter, even if it's a you thing, she's watching.
She's watching and listening.
Yeah.
And it's really, I really feel for every parent, because, you know, you want them to be healthy. You want them to exercise. But if you tell them, they might take it the wrong way. And, you know, when I've never told my kids to work out. Actually, I used to tell Olivia to work out for her head. Like, they were like, you need to start trying something, because also fun fact, when you walk, I was like, even go for a walk. When you move your body, you actually create neurons. Like little kids create neurons in their head, right? Like it's good for brain health. Anyways, I was saying, I think that the kids definitely, parents, it's an overall conversation, and really fact check yourself if you do struggle with their image, like is it important to you the way they look? And I don't think many people are honest with that they really are comfortable with the way their children look.
And by the way, I think that goes with like right now we're talking about teen body image, but that is a lot of like parents really have to sit outside. Does it matter what your kid looks like? Does it matter what your kid's grades, like for you? Does it matter to you? Like, does their grades reflect on you? Does the school they go to reflect on you?
Dude.
Does the team that they play for reflect on you? Does their body, does their clothes?
Does how much they go out with certain people? Like, do you care about if they're cool or not cool? Like deemed cool or not cool?
And parents, by the way, a lot of you do.
A lot. I had the conversation yesterday, and I was like,
and during this conversation we had it with Jenn Sherman, and she was the OG instructor for Peloton, and I think that what we came down to is that exercise and fitness has become a way larger part of our teen girls' worlds, way more than it was when I didn't have a friend who worked out in high school.
I did.
But I didn't know that you were doing that. There are a lot of girls were not playing sports, and they weren't at the gym. There wasn't any of that going on. That is not a thing now, and whether it has to do with just like a change in wellness and education, and also through social media. But all girls, most girls have done a yoga class by the time they're a certain age, and what we which I think is great, like learning how to take care of your body, because
it's a habit. Yeah. It's a literal habit for the rest. It was just so annoying. But if it's not yoga, it's walking. We're lazier than ever. They don't even walk to the bus stop anymore. We are lazier than ever. So we even had to go meet people by walking. So now they can just they don't even have to walk to get a Starbucks. They can Uber it to themselves. Like, it's crazy if you think about how much less they're moving because of what the convenience,
the access they have now. But I think what it sounded like, although there's lots of options and there's teens needing exercise for their mental health and also just all that stuff, but it didn't sound, when we came out of that conversation, that anything has changed as far as the way girls are perceiving themselves that much.
Yep. Unfortunately. No. But when you have a generation raising them who have so much baggage to unpack, and I think that it's not shocking. And that's why I think so much of what we try to say is like, as much as you think you can preach it to your kids, it's really about how you actually feel about yourself. And sometimes talking about it constantly is a narrative that makes them think, oh, what's wrong with me? Like, what's wrong with me if they have to always talk about what's right with them? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So,
well, hope you enjoyed this podcast. She was great. I think we could definitely be friends with her. And she's been she's the OG Peloton instructor. Enjoy the podcast.
Let's go, Linda.
All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. We have Jenn Sherman here, and we're going to be talking about young girls and fitness and exercise, and wrapping our heads around as moms how to, and parents, how to handle that relationship the way that they see it when we're talking about weight loss or just being healthy. And Jenn Sherman is a indoor cycling class instructor.
Correct. Are you a mom? I am a mom. I'm an old ass mom is what I am.
You're not like an old mom.
How old are your old ass kids? So my old ass kids are my son, Evan, is going to be 24. And my daughter, Carly, is going to be 21.
Oh, wow.
So you know all about it.
I have this thought where we don't question about the boys working out or doing sports, or, as much as we do with the girls about their body image and encouraging them to be active.
Yeah.
I feel like with the girls, we're so afraid to suggest working out or to suggest moving their bodies because it implies that there's something wrong with them, where the boys, it seems to be more fun naturally for them. Like there's more sports for them to do where it looks fun.
I hear you. And it's tricky, and it's a tricky, touchy conversation with the girls, right? So you guys have how many girls between you? I know your girls are best friends.
3.
Other girls hanging around? Okay.
Yeah, there's 3 of them.
I have a baby one. I have a baby 8-year-old.
Oh, you do have a baby.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay. So, it is a tricky conversation, and it's hard to maneuver because let's face it, let's just get one part of the conversation out of the way as it pertains to girls and health and fitness and what they look like. The social media has fucked us, right? I mean, we're just all...
Yes. Facts. Now it's facts. It's actual facts now.
That's actual facts. I mean, it's fucked for us to look at what we look at, but imagine what it's like for our girls to look at what they, what they're seeing every day and comparing themselves. It's so freaking unrealistic. Even our girls know how to do things to their photos to make themselves look the best they've ever looked on that given day. It's a touchy conversation. I will say that with my daughter, sports was always a thing for her from the time that she was very little. She was a soccer player. I know you guys did soccer and hockey all throughout your worlds. Mm-hmm. So, and we didn't have to push her to play. And that's, by the way, part of it, right? It can be harder to get your daughters to play, to want to even play on a team or do that if maybe it's not innate, it's not a part of who they are. I was not an athlete, even though I like to think of myself as one. I was not an athlete in post-high school or high school. My husband was. He played football throughout, Pee-wee, high school. He played college football as well. Mm-hmm. We were really lucky that Carly was one of those girls that came out being like, I want to kick a soccer ball.
Yeah. Because even for the kids, a lot of parents get their daughters, when they're young, into all these different sports, whether it's soccer, dance, tennis, all these things. But they say at about 11 years old, a lot of the girls
are out. They're done.
Are out because they are either no longer interested or they're starting to feel insecure about their bodies. So they just don't want to participate.
Or that... your period, and you don't feel like going one day, and if you don't go, you're kicked off the team because the level of sport that used to be fun is now so competitive that you either are all in with no feelings and you can't change and you can't want to have a little bit of something different, or you there's no options. There's no options.
You get
for
cut,
and
you know what? You don't want to push team sports on a kid that doesn't want to be there, right? That's another crazy thing, especially in this world that we live in with everyone's kids taking a million classes and a million this and a million teams, and you got to be in, But if you do have a kid who's not finding themselves comfortable in that space, you can't push that shit. That is just going to fire on you. So I found myself with Carly very lucky that she was this little soccer playing girl from the time she was 4 years old on. And then as she started to grow up, and I think you guys know about this stuff, it became much more competitive for her. She was travel soccer, club soccer, not just through the town. It's so when you have that, that's just a gift because they're moving, right? They have no choice. Practice is mandatory. And the things that come along with being a competitive athlete at that age, you're going to move. They're going to be moving their bodies. Mm-hmm. So I think it is really tricky, though, when you don't have a daughter that wants to play a sport and you're trying to push it on them. And I've seen that with so many of my friends. That is where the conversation about, all right, so you don't want to pick up the tennis racket. That's okay. You don't feel comfortable playing a sport. You're not driven to do that. But we have to talk about being healthy and being fit. And that conversation, as we all know, is a fucking shit show as well, because you have to be so careful what you're saying. You don't want to make these young girls feel a certain way. They already are feeling so much of that shit, right? On the daily. So I always looked at it as being strong and being fit makes you badass, because that's how I look at it, right? I wasn't an athlete, but working out was always super important to me and made me feel really strong and powerful, it gave me my superpowers.
Always, and by the way, when you were a young teenager?
You're not teenager. I would say that working out for me started in high school and not through high school sports. But I was one of those. Now, there's a big age difference between me and you hot, gorgeous women. Mm-hmm. I was doing step classes in high school. So I know you don't even know what a step class is, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do.
You do. You're we know. Okay, so step
But I don't know if I'd
working
want my
out.
kid. I don't know if I'd want my teenager doing that. Is that normal? Does that feel weird?
No, it doesn't.
Why were you doing it?
Listen, back then, who knows? I'm sure I didn't, and I say that because I had a mother who smoked cigarettes and drank Diet Coke. So it wasn't like that was coming to me through the household and the environment that I was growing up in. I think I kind of cared about what I looked like. If I'm being honest, I think.
Yeah, be honest. I think that that's important because I think that that's the wrong reasons to do it because it's something you will never be happy with because it's like you have to do it in order to be enough of something rather than, moving your body for different reasons.
Right. Because back then, for me, let's say in the 80s, the narrative of the health and fitness and staying strong and healthy was not what it is now, right? Like doesn't even nearly compare. So if I am being honest and looking back on it, why the hell else was I doing it? I think I wanted to do it because it did make me feel strong, but I wasn't getting pushed that you need to move your body in order to be your best version of your best self. That bullshit didn't come along until, we weren't hearing that on the daily until years later. And so I think I was just there because I enjoyed it. I loved taking those cardio classes. I was one of those cardio freaks. If I had a fun instructor that had a good playlist rocking, I was into it. And it was my way of no, I don't play sports and I'm not a cheerleader, but I actually go to the gym and I take these cardio classes and they're really fun. And I just was always kind of into it. It's what led me to do what I do for a living, I think. Just, group organized classes, trying to get me to work out by myself. That was not for me. I was never a runner, still not, still don't even pretend to, as much as I wish I could say that I was, I'm not. I just fell into exercise and loved it, but I know that is not the norm. And that is not, the way that it typically goes for our teenage daughters.
Yeah.
I think it also, though, starts, from a really young age. I think that if you haven't talked to your kids about it or they haven't maybe done it and then they turn 13 and you're like, so you should start something physically probably right about now. It is a very probably toxic conversation because they are why
bringing it up now?
Yeah, and I think that's
why. Do you think I need it? Why you don't think I look?
Yeah.
Why?
And then they call their friends and my mom says I have to exercise. She thinks I'm fat.
Yeah, and I think we do miss the boat massively when we don't show them how to and why walking's important and why parking farther is important because it kind of is a lifestyle. And I think
oh my God, I'm a terrible example.
We don't teach our kids how to do it when it should be something that we teach them that we don't expect them. Do you know what I mean? It should be something we teach them from a very young age.
And here I am, doing what I do for a living. And let me just give you guys a little bit of background. It's not like I was this indoor cycling instructor and this fitness instructor from an early. This was a pivot for me. I did not become indoor cycling. Are you only Peloton, or are you just? Is that you have to be exclusive to them?
Yeah,
only them.
And that's the epitome of the indoor cycling.
Yeah,
so you really did achieve quite high.
Yeah, I mean that whole story is another story for another. It's a great story. That's another story for another podcast because I really was just the suburban mom, coming and going and doing carpool and back and forth from soccer practice and teaching indoor cycling in my small little community at a small little studio. That didn't all happen for me until I was 40, which is very late in the fitness game. So I'm the old bitch of cycling. I'm the fact that they even still pay me to do what I do is a freaking miracle. But that said, I digress. You would think with Carly seeing what she's seeing in me, right? Because before I became a certified spin instructor, I was in my mid-30s, the woman that was exercising like crazy. And I needed it for my mental health. You know, that shit. And you're oh, the mental health, the mental piece. The mental piece is so for real. And for me in particular, that was driving me. I couldn't be a sane mother. I don't even know if I still am one. I don't even know if I was one, if I am one, barely. Without it, I couldn't see straight. But you would think that my love of exercise and then turning it into a career would motivate my daughter. How about this, girls? Soccer ended. She ended up not going on and playing in college, which was her dream. She tore her ACL junior year. So that kind of like situation. She did come back senior year with a great season, but the college situation, playing in college, was over. And here's her mom. You know, my career really took off in my 50s, like in my late 40s and 50s. She's seeing all this going on, and it couldn't have been less of a motivator for her.
Really?
How about Carly Sherman has only been to Peloton one time, and I've been there 11 years. So my point being, I'm saying all this to say that you think it's about what they're seeing, you know, if they're a product of their surroundings or their parents, that should be like an easy go-to. They're going to follow in your footsteps. Not necessarily so. Soccer's done. Carly could give a shit about getting on a Peloton bike and working out and like emulating her mom and like go mom. In fact, she's quite embarrassed of me. Like that's just, of course, right?
Yeah, as they do.
So it's tricky because Carly now does work out, but she runs and she works out and she cares about what she looks like. But as much as I try to speak to her again about the longevity of exercise and how it's just something that has to be important and has to be a part of your life because you need it for all of the reasons, all of the things, to keep your mind healthy, to keep your body healthy, to be strong, to be an example for your kids when you're a mom. Guess what? My daughter is doing it to look good. And she will say that. She will still say, we were away. She's actually studying abroad right now. So we were visiting her in Spain last week. And many of these conversations went on. I'm not eating a thing today because I want to chow tonight. Do you know what I'm saying?
To chow tonight, yeah.
Yeah, like we're going to that crazy restaurant tonight. I feel like I'm eating horribly. I don't want to go for a big brunch.
That is still a conversation. It's a conversation
at 21.
Speaking of that, because you have Carly and then who's 21, and then obviously
my son Evan's 24.
Right. And you have you see so many young girls and women in your job. What are the trends that we might not be as aware of with young girls, or have they changed from when we're young? What are they doing now to achieve their...
Where is this narrative coming from? Because, oh my God.
Listen, again, I really think that social media is such a, we all love it. And part of my bit, I'm doing, right? Like, but it's toxic as fuck. And I actually think that for young girls, they are putting so much up on social media about their crazy workouts and their diets. Tweens, teenagers, and my daughter's age, like college age. I will say the trend that I'm seeing teaching in the studio, there are a lot of young girls that are working out and love it. Now, how they fell upon it, was it a byproduct of, growing up with parents that were exercising daily in the house and them seeing it? But in college, this was not the way it was when I was in college. Everybody's working out now. So I don't know if it's a part of wanting to feel like you're a part of something. I don't know if it's a bit of, everyone's working out, so I don't want to be the odd man out type of thing. But there still is no ease. I've got no tips and tricks. Like, you might want to cancel this interview, because what I'm going to say to you is, as much as you can sit and try to talk to your girls and keep the narrative where it should be, which is you need to move your body to be the best version of yourself. And it's true. They're looking at you and rolling your eye. They're rolling their eyes. They don't understand the part that it keeps their mental health in check. And it does. They don't know that it does. It does.
I will say the one thing that I do with my whole family, and I think that it's something that everyone can do, is just sort of talk about, I say that everyone carries some sort of anxious energy in them. You don't even know where
1,000%. Find me someone that doesn't. You're not.
And I say, like, you eat it. You're eating it, and even though, because you can't talk about it at school, or like something's bothered you, and you're not even aware. I call it your second brain. Your second brain is eating these things, and then it's showing up in your body. And I try to explain to them, it is something you physically have to get rid of. Like, you physically have to do something.
Correct.
To actually get it out of your body, because otherwise it just sits there. It's not like food that just does it on its own. It's something that if you don't do, then it will just continue. You'll get fuller and fuller and fuller, and then you'll have they'll come manifest in worse ways. So
either exercise it out, or you'll do alcohol and drugs to forget about it.
Right. Or there's that, or a combination.
No, I say you can walk, like even go for a walk and go outside. I'm like, talk to your friends, talk to me, talk to your brother, like different things, not just working out, because I think the more you push working out, in our experience, the more they're kind of like, yeah, no, you say it, I'm not going to do it. So I think give you strategies around the fact that you will consume negative things and you actually have to expel it. You can't just expect it to go away on its own.
Or it sits there and manifests. You have to move through it. And I've said that to Carly a lot when she'll call me from school, freaking out, drama, anxiety, all the things. I will say to her now, because I can say this now, go for a run.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying to her, go for a run because she needs to burn off the pizza that she had after going to 14 bars the night before. Go for a run means go work that shit out,
Yeah.
But by the way, if I had said that to her 5 years ago, she'd be like, go for a run. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
What's so crazy is that you're right when you're saying like all the girls in college work out. And that was, I feel like people that would work out a lot at that age, it was sort of like the minority. And now you rarely will meet a woman or a girl who doesn't participate.
And boy, by the way.
And boy, who doesn't participate in something. Like I'm thinking every woman I know, I don't have a friend who doesn't do some sort of activity. And
well, it's like not even like accepted at this point in life, right? It's almost like you got to do something. It doesn't matter if you were, let's take the scale and weight out of it. For even those women that never had an issue with weight and were always at a perfectly healthy weight and physically, are really happy with what they see in the mirror, you got to work out. You have to. And that can just be walking.
Yeah. And not just walking's amazing, by the way. Not just, like, it can be anything.
And you don't hurt yourself.
And you're outside. Or guess what? Even if you're inside on the treadmill, to me, it's not personally that I love to be outside. I'm that kind of a girly, but walking is a beautiful way to move your body.
And I think we should also point out for a lot of parents right now, as we're having this conversation, when you think about we used to have to walk to the bus stop and wait for the bus to take us places. We used to, even when you were out on a Friday night, you would have to figure out, go find a taxi. I would love a study to see how much less we're moving because of Uber and because of us feeling the need to drive our kids everywhere, because I know I probably have about 3 million more steps than my kids have because of the sheer of having to walk to school and back from school. And now they take gym. They take gym out of high school, which is such a, so mind-blowing in Canada that gym is optional, because really they'd be such,
When you get like my daughter's going into grade 11, grade 10, she doesn't have to take it.
Wowza. Okay.
So they're not really, you have kids who really don't have to do anything and they sit in a school all day long and then they can come home and study all night long and really not move if they're getting picked up and dropped off. And I think as parents, we've sort of lost that reality that our kids really aren't moving as much as we had to move. And screens, if they're bored, they're not going to go outside and find something to do. They don't have to get bored anymore and go move their bodies in different ways.
There's no going outside and finding fun anymore. Like that, we know that, right?
You're gonna get kidnapped if you go out there. Just stay inside.
There's too much to do on your phone and in your house, like staring at a screen. So that is a huge part of the challenge. It's interesting when you just mentioned the fact, like when we were younger, and even with our age difference, meaning me and you beautiful girls, like, I walked home from school because there were days that my mom was not coming to get me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Carly or Evan Sherman ever walked home from school even one day. First of all, I don't live that close to the high school. I'm just talking high school years.
Yeah.
I was just so programmed to be on that carpool line, and God forbid I wasn't there early. Forget if I ever... If the house was burning down and I was like, you guys got to get home. You're walking home today. I don't even know what the reaction would be. It's a whole different landscape, which is, again, why trying to get our kids to move and trying to get them to do it without forcing them to do it is a tricky conversation. Like, you thought you were going to have me on here and I was going to be like, girls, it's easy. This is what you do and say. It's not easy. It's a hard conversation on a lot of levels when you're trying to work that into your kid's brain and try to make it important for them if they don't come to it on their own.
Sorry. I just think we can't be afraid, though. Sorry. I just think we can't be. Hold on one second.
Okay. Yeah, and I also think that like you know, even all of us just having this conversation about no matter what you do, no matter what your example is, no matter what sport they play, it is a tricky conversation for us all to have. And I love the idea of doing it for your brain. But you're so right. These teenagers are like, what do you mean? What are you even talking about?
Right.
I love when they do come back next.
And we'll see the change in that. Like I said, like my daughter, a few years ago, if I had said, you are so anxious, go out for a run or a walk, you'll feel so much better. I literally, that didn't even compute, but it computes now. You said, as moms changes and they move from high school into college, like there are just, things change. They grow up, they mature. There's different things going on around them, and I'm seeing a little. I'm very hopeful for the future. I think
I will say that I have to walk with them sometimes. Like you do have to sometimes. Like, I'm going for a walk. Do you want to come? They'll all come usually if the mom walks out the door. So it is something that,
by the way, huge.
I think often
they want to go.
I have a dog, so you have to come. But I think often as moms, we're on our phones and we're like, you should go out and do something while we're on our phones, telling them to get off their phones. Yeah. And I think that the narrative has to be, we actually have to physically get up and go for a walk with them and then, lead the charge rather than being like, go do that. Because if you're just pointing the finger at them constantly, I do see that a lot. I'm guilty of it sometimes, being like when they're hyper and crazy. I'm like, get off your phone and go do something. Guess what I'm doing? I'm on my phone, not doing something.
But you're not hyper and crazy at the time.
I know, but I think we do have to take more responsibility for being active with them. I bet if you offered to go play with them, they would go do it with you. I bet if you offered, I know, but if you really are concerned, we can't just expect them to go and do it. Like, go do something that they enjoy with them rather than us. If we're really trying to be solvable, if we're trying to solve problems here and help moms, it's work. And it's not just, you're not just going to look at your 10-year-old and be like, go for a run on the treadmill.
Yeah. That's not the way it was. And you're right about that. And trying to find something that you can do together is huge. I have a lot of, this is not my personal experience because Carly doesn't want to work out with me. She's made that very clear on every level. But a lot of my closest girlfriends with their daughters, I'm like, oh, how was your day? Whatever. Alex and I took a yoga class. We just got back from, it's a lot of my daughters are bonding over it.
That's true.
And you can do it together. Go for
That's true.
And I wish I had that with Carly. She's doing it on her own, so I'll take it for what it's worth. But, however you have to get there and however you have to, weave it into your children's life, you have to do it carefully because of, all the tricky conversations.
But also, Jen, when you're saying that, like, when you would have told your daughter for her mental health to go for a run 5 years ago, she would have rolled her eyes at you. But it's like us having these conversations. She may have come to it on her own, but she heard what you said. And, when they get to a certain place, when they're ready or mature enough, they might say, I remember, like, I'm feeling like really like overwhelmed. And I remember my mom's advice was to like go for a run and I might feel better. Like those voices that you gave her, you play in her head.
You plant a seed.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. And I hope she sticks with it forever because it's something that it's something that you have to be able to, everyone's got a different life, right? Everyone's got a different day. Everyone's got different situations. And the whole thing about finding time for it, that we know that there's always a way to find something because even 20 minutes can be a benefit. I teach a ton of 20-minute classes on the Peloton bike. And guess what?
Yep.
We get on that bike. We're not bullshitting around. We get to work. 20 minutes later, you're off and you're done. It was 20 fucking minutes. Like,
yeah.
We can all find a way. And I just hope that it stays with both of my kids forever. I think it will.
Guess what? If it doesn't, not much we can do about it. You know what I mean? At some points, don't argue. Don't make the fight bigger than what it is. And you hope that they find it one day. And I think the whole conversation around mental health and understanding that it is a way to actually help buffer. It's not going to change everything, but it's sort of like a positive when there's all this negative. It is one thing you can control, and it can, it might not tip the scale so bad that you're feeling overwhelmed. It might just help you cope a little bit. It's a coping skill.
And the scale, right? And the scale. Listen, it's actually science. It's not bullshit. It's actually
no, it's science.
Things going on in your body. You know what I mean?
And then we get older, and if we don't have the muscle to protect our bones, we're going to fall and break our bones, and then we're going to be sitting in bed, and we're not going to be able to do anything. And
then you die.
And then you die.
You mean like me, who just took their first bone density test? You have, by the way, guys, you have such awesome shit to look forward to when you get into your. Call me back, and we'll talk. We'll talk.
Jen, how's the bone density?
The bone density did not come back favorable, and it did not. So,
but your muscles can protect the bones, because you've got them, right?
Listen,
I thought the bone was the muscle. No.
Oh God! Because if we have muscles around them,
do we have to drink more milk?
Oh shit! There's probably some pills we have to
take. I said that to the doctor the other day. I said, I just got off of calcium for my heart, and now you want me to put me back? You want to put me back on it for my bones? I'm all over the place. But
oh God, this
working out is a huge piece to that picture also. So like I'm training a different way, strength training, that kind of stuff. Don't want to bore you with that, but it's a journey, girls. It really is. And
so just so you know, it catches up to you at one point, whether you're like 5 or whether you're 55. At some point, you're gonna have to do something, or you're gonna be a sack of potatoes.
Yeah. Well, that is the long and the short of it, isn't it?
Well, I just think that it's all of us having this conversation, because it is such a touchy subject with our daughters, knowing that everyone who's listening to this, if it's tricky for you and you don't know how to do it, you're not alone.
And I think it's sons too right now. I think it's just getting them to move in a way of a time when mental health is so high that it is something we all need to be concerned about, not even for body image, just even for mental health, why we might all be tanking right now. And I think it is, if we just keep having the conversation, not even about body weight, but about really movement and what it can do for us as a society, well, how much farther we'd be.
Boom. That's I also love the idea when you're talking about like everybody doing it in college is also you can be introduced to a new community of people that might really be have a positive impact on you.
By the way, for real, like Carly goes to the gym with like one friend group, other friend group, like it's socialization at the same time also.
It's actually a community. It's a different community that we all need communities in our life, and it is a community that you can relate to and have something in common with.
Absolutely 1,000%. And it's just about, the food conversation, which we didn't touch upon, again, really tricky, trying really hard not to watch every single thing that your daughter or your son puts in their mouth, but yet you want them to find, healthy habits, keeping, eating healthy foods at home, having plenty of options, plenty of choices, never making your daughter feel bad when you see her indulging in something, because that's such another fine line you have to walk down. So it's tricky. It's not easy. Just like everything else about parenting, right? It just, nothing's easy.
One mindfuck after the other.
But it's important.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was a really important conversation to have. And I think if anything, it's giving people the food for thought. That was a pun. It's giving people something to think about in terms of have the conversation. Don't be afraid of the conversation. Don't be afraid to address it. Don't be afraid to ask their opinion on it. What do you think about, like, where are you at? What do your friends work out? Do you think it's healthy? Do you not? When in doubt, always ask them rather than tell them. And if you really have no idea where they're at, ask them, what do you do? Like, is working out a thing? Do you guys do sports? Like, we have no idea as moms what our teens are.
1,000%. And always encouraging them, right? Just keeping it, just always encouraging, trying to get them to connect to something that will, you can't, we said this at the top of the show, and so we'll end it here. You can't force or push your kid into anything they don't want to do. So you got to find ways to make it something they enjoy. And that's the conversation, doing it with them, encouraging them. Why don't you and your best friend, so-and-so go try that, they just have to connect in some way. And then once they do, they're on their way and they're on their path. You always have to talk to them about movement being important and why. And then they're so sick of hearing it from you, they'll want to get out of the house to get away from it. That's how that'll go.
Jen, thank you so much. Kat can't wait to take one of your Peloton classes.
Nat, come on. Best should do these types of things together.
I have it in Iceman.
She has taken a few places. It's gonna hit. It's gonna
talking about osmosis.
Yeah, just talking about it.
Thank you, Jenn.
Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for having me.
and have a great day.
You too.
Bye. Bye.